Hello, I'm Dr. Seth Jenny, and I'm going to discuss the different components of a research article. And so now I'm going to actually go through a research article and discuss those different various components within that. All right, so here's a research article in the journal Sports Technology. Taylor and Francis, this is the publisher. And you can see here's to cite this article, there's the authors, the year is published, the title, Virtual and Real Life Wall Rock Climbing, Motor Movement Comparisons in Video Gaming Pedagogical Perceptions. This is the DOI, which is called the Digital Object Identifier. That is where essentially it will forever be placed on the internet, is I guess a crude way of putting it. All right. This was when the paper was first submitted, then after revisions, published. The abstract. So, abstracts are typically 150 words approximately. They may start with a little bit of an introduction to the topic. This abstract starts with the purpose of the study, examining similarities and differences between video gaming rock climbing and real life rock climbing and its perceived usefulness to use motion-based video gaming. So this is the Xbox Kinect rock climbing to teach somebody how to rock climb in real life. Talks a little bit about the design of the study. It's a multi-phase intervention. Participants, how many there were. They had no climbing experience, so that's some of the demographic information. Then it goes into the results of the study, and it finishes with what the significance of the study is. And this was a mixed method study in the sense that both quantitative and qualitative data was collected. So now you have the keywords. When you are writing keywords, per APA recommendations, do not use the same keywords that are in the title of the paper, because when somebody's doing a search, these keywords are going to help find your paper. But if you're going to just repeat the same keywords in the title as in the keywords, you should be using other words that are not in the title to help people find your paper. All right, so then the next component of a research article is the introduction. So here we don't go straight into talking about motion-based or exergaming video games. We're talking about in general. And so typically you'll see authors will move what you call from an upside-down triangle from general to specific. And the specific is at the end of the introduction, getting into the purpose of the study and the research questions, and you might have the hypotheses as well there. But so here we have the introduction of this. We're talking about video gaming in general. Then we move into a little bit more specific, talking about motion-based video games. So these are examples would be the Xbox Kinect, the Nintendo Wii, discussing them. Now we're talking about motion-based video games and energy expenditure. We're talking about some of the studies that have been done which have looked at caloric expenditure when people are playing motion-based video games. Then we're moving into motion-based video games and in physical education, P through 12, that's primary, pre-kindergarten, and all the way to 12th grade. So it's getting to be more specific because pedagogy, another word for pedagogy is teaching. So we're moving into more specific to the topic. And then finally, we're getting into the purpose and the significance. Typically what you'll see directly before the purpose statement, which is the second sentence, is this is what you'd call the problem statement. Few studies have methodically investigated the effectiveness of using motion-based video games in teaching sport skills. So we discussed here hey, here's the research that's been done on motion-based video games and burning calories, and also some gaming in physical education, but we've not. There's a dearth of information about how can you use motion-based video games in teaching sport skills, motor skills, and so the purpose of the study is to fill in the blank, and then we have two main research questions listed here. Sometimes you'll see the significance after the research questions. All right, next component, the methods. So sometimes called the methodology. Here's where the authors are going to list the design of the study. They're going to discuss the participants. Certainly, the N is how many participants are in the sample. SD is standard deviation. There's the average age of the participants in the different groups. These are separated where they're talking about the gaming first group and then the authentic wall first group. That's how those are separated there. GF is game first, WF is wall first, and then the participants switched in the gaming environment versus the authentic environment. They also notice IRB, the ethics part of research. A lot of times you'll see that in the very beginning of the methods section where it talks about the study was approved by the Institutional Review Board. Then we're getting into instruments. So the purpose of the instruments or equipment is to describe what was used in the study. In the procedures is where you say how those instruments and equipment were used. So let's go back to here and let's see what instruments. So we discussed the questionnaire and a survey. The questionnaire was focused on the demographics of the participants. The survey was focused on specifically their gaming history and their perceived usefulness of motion-based video games in teaching rock climbing. Then we're going to talk about the equipment that was used. The Xbox One with Kinect, that's the motion sensing camera with the Xbox. Then we have the actual video game discussing Kinect Sports Rivals. And then we discuss what was the climbing wall, the authentic climbing wall that was used for the wall climbing group before they switched. And so it's a 36 indoor climbing wall, typical manual belay system. All right, so then here is typically where you will see the first table in the article, and that is the demographic information. So we go through gender, ethnicity, and race, age, and then what type of student they were, and then what their major was. So these are all the people that were in the study. So this is primary research as compared to secondary. So now in the procedures, we discuss how the study was conducted. Who did what, how often, what variables were they exposed to, and for how long. So we talked about procedures of the focus groups at the end, which made the mixed method part of it. Even discussing the voice recorder that was used. All right. Now we're talking about moving into the data analysis. So we have two different sections here. Most of the time you only have one section, and we discuss what quantitative statistical tests were performed to analyze the quantitative data, the numbers. All right. Yes, we love SPSS. All right. And then we talk about how the qualitative data, the words, the focus group data was analyzed, and we'll give a shout out to Atlas TI, is the computer program that helps us organize our qualitative data. Now, moving into table 2 are the results. So this is some of the quantitative data. This was part of that questionnaire. The physical actions necessary in the Xbox rock climbing game are the same as in real life. Before they did anything, this was their pre, and then separated between the gaming first and the wall first after they did one of the experiences, and then they switched and did the other experience. That was their results. So the results section is we split it up into two different research questions. So if we go back up to up here, as perceived by amateurs, how closely do the physical actions involved in the video game mirror the same fundamental concepts and motor movements of the real life rock climbing? So here is where we discuss our results in relation to that research question 1. You might see it listed as RQ1. And then we're moving into RQ2. And RQ2 was, I passed it. Would it be useful to use motion-based video games when trying to teach someone how to authentically wall rock climb? And so let's go back down to the results of RQ2. And so that is the reporting of the data. Okay. Now, in the discussion is where we discuss how the results, which was reported right above, how the results relate to the past research and any theoretical underpinnings. So we first talk about research question 1. Remind us, what was the purpose of the study? You'll see that a lot of times at the beginning of the discussion. And then we're getting into relating to the results in relation to past research. And so you'll see citations from past other studies here. Jenny et al. 2013. That's a previous study that I had done that I'm citing myself. Got to do that. Got to cite yourself. And then we're Anders. So we're citing other past research and studies in relation to the results that we got for research question 1. And you can see some of these subheadings are the different components of what was found in the focus groups in relation to research question 1. So now we're into research question 2. What was that purpose? What was that research question 2? Remind the readers there. And then in relation to past research, Fitz and Posner, other theoretical underpinnings, motor learning types of things, how would it be a pedagogical tool? And so we're talking about the results in relation to past research. And this is a table of the qualitative data, perceived similarities and differences based upon the focus groups, and more qualitative data. All right. Next, the conclusion. So that is going to be a brief summary of what the results, the discussion were. It may be putting it in relation to future research, and certainly peer-reviewed manuscripts are also going to be listing what are the limitations to that study. What are the threats to internal, external validity, acknowledgments, and then the references. This is APA format. And so you can see sometimes you'll see in research articles where at the end they will be listing all the tables and figures, but most of the time they will be embedded within the article. All right, so hopefully you've learned about the various components of a research article, and here's a brief summary of those. Title page, abstract, introduction, methods, results, discussion, and then not listed here, conclusions, references, future research, as well as limitations.